The night I turned 60 should have been one of the happiest nights of my life. Instead, it became the night I realized something painful about my own family. Have you ever sat at a table full of people who claimed to love you and suddenly felt like a stranger among them? Have you ever smiled politely while someone slowly stripped away your dignity in front of everyone? I have. And the worst part was that it happened on my birthday. My name is Parker, and I am 60 years old. For most of my life, I believed that sacrifice always came back as love. But on my 60th birthday, my son's wife publicly humiliated me in front of friends and family. What she didn't know was that the quiet man she mocked had been preparing for years. And the decision I made afterward shocked her more than she could have imagined. But before I tell you about that night, you need to understand my life first. Because revenge without context is just anger. And this story is about something much deeper. It is about respect. Welcome to my YouTube channel Moral Ecos, where silence speaks. 60 years of life. Turning 60 is a strange thing. You wake up in the same body in the same house, drinking the same coffee you've had for years. But suddenly, the world looks at you differently. Older, slower, less important. That morning, I woke up before sunrise. The house was quiet. Too quiet. 5 years earlier, my wife Margaret used to fill that silence with small sounds. The kettle boiling, the radio playing soft music, her gentle humming while she watered the plants. But cancer took her away. And after she was gone, the house felt like it had lost its soul. I walked to the kitchen and poured myself a cup of coffee. Steam rose from the mug as sunlight slowly crept through the window. I whispered to myself, "Happy birthday, Parker." 60 years. I had worked my entire life. Not for luxury, not for fame, but for family. And that day, my son Daniel had promised something special. "Dad, we're throwing a dinner for you tonight," he told me on the phone the day before. For the first time in a long time, I felt excited. The boy I raised. Daniel was born on a cold winter night. I still remember the moment the nurse placed him in my arms. He was tiny, fragile, his little fingers wrapped around mine. And in that moment, I made a promise to myself. I will give this boy everything I never had. My childhood had been difficult. My father worked hard, but money was always tight. So when Daniel was born, I decided his life would be different. I worked 2 jobs. Construction during the day. Night security at a warehouse. There were nights I came home so exhausted, I barely made it to bed. But when Daniel ran into my arms shouting, "Dad," all the tiredness disappeared. He was my purpose, my pride, my future. And for many years, I believed he felt the same. When life changed. When Daniel turned 28, he met Vanessa. The first time I saw her, she walked into the room with confidence. Elegant dress, perfect hair, bright smile. She shook my hand politely. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Parker." But there was something in her eyes. A quick glance at my old jacket. A moment of silent judgment. It was small, almost invisible. But I noticed. Still, Daniel loved her deeply. So I welcomed her into the family. They married 2 years later. And slowly, things began to change. Small signs. Vanessa never openly insulted me at first. Instead, she used small comments. Comments that sounded polite but carried hidden meaning. One evening at dinner, she said, "Daniel works incredibly hard. It's amazing how he manages to support so many responsibilities." Then she looked at me with a smile. "Family can be expensive." Another time she said, You should really consider selling your house, Parker. Big houses are hard for older people. Older people. I was 58 at the time, but I stayed quiet because arguing would only create problems for Daniel, and I loved my son too much for that. The invitation. 2 days before my birthday, Daniel called me. Dad, we're hosting a big dinner for your 60th birthday. A big dinner. Yes, friends, neighbors, some family. Vanessa planned most of it. I paused. Vanessa planning my birthday. That surprised me. But Daniel sounded happy. And hearing happiness in your child's voice is something a parent never ignores. All right, I said, I'll be there. For the first time in years, I felt something warm inside. Maybe Vanessa had finally accepted me. Maybe I had judged her too harshly. Sometimes hope can be very convincing. The party. That evening I drove to Daniel's house. It was a beautiful 2-story home in a quiet neighborhood. Bright lights glowed through the windows. Music played softly inside. When I walked in, I saw balloons everywhere. A large banner on the wall read, Happy 60th birthday Parker. People clapped when they saw me. Daniel hugged me tightly. Happy birthday, Dad. For a moment, emotion filled my chest. Maybe this night would be special after all. Then Vanessa approached. She wore a red dress and carried a glass of wine. Parker, she said with a thin smile, glad you made it. The way she said it felt strange. But I ignored the feeling. I didn't want to ruin the evening. The toast. Dinner was wonderful. People shared stories. Old friends laughed. For a while, everything felt normal. Then Vanessa stood up. She tapped her glass with a spoon. I'd like to make a toast. Everyone grew quiet. She looked around the room before resting her gaze on me. Well, today Parker turned 60. Some people clapped. She smiled. But birthdays are also a time for honesty. Something in my chest tightened. Then she said the words I will never forget. You know, it's impressive how Daniel has built such a successful life, especially considering where he started. She paused. And now he even helps support the family. The room went silent. Then she added with a small laugh. Without Daniel, Parker might still be struggling. A few awkward chuckles echoed through the room. My face burned. I looked at Daniel. He looked uncomfortable. But he said nothing. Not a single word. And in that moment, I realized something painful. Sometimes silence can hurt more than insults. My quiet response. Inside, anger was rising. But I stayed calm. I slowly lifted my glass. Thank you for the toast, Vanessa. People relaxed again. Dinner continued. But something inside me had changed forever. Because respect lost in public is not easily forgotten. And that night, I decided I would never allow anyone to see me as weak again. The secret. There was something Vanessa didn't know. Something even Daniel didn't know. Years earlier, Margaret and I made an investment. A small one at first. But over time it grew. Very successfully. After Margaret passed away, I managed the money carefully. Quietly. The result. I had more financial security than Daniel ever imagined. But I never spoke about it. Because I didn't believe money defined a person. That belief changed slightly on my birthday. The decision. 2 weeks later, I visited a lawyer. I signed several documents. Then I transferred a large portion of my savings to a charity. An organization that helps elderly people abandoned by their families. When Daniel received the legal notice, he called immediately. "Dad, why would you donate so much money?" I answered calmly, "Because they need it more. But we thought maybe." I finished his sentence. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because every story here leaves behind a lesson.